Hi, I'd like to welcome you to another edition of the Wright Experience. I'm Dr. William T. Wright Jr., the founder and host of this show. It is absolutely my pleasure to bring you the 71st episode of our show. Tonight, I have with me a guest that I have known for many, many years, as when I first became a superintendent just about 10 years ago now. He was one of the first people to reach out to me and welcome me to the state of South Carolina. He has been a friend and a colleague, and an amazing fraternity brother, of course, ever since. My guest tonight is Dr. Darrell Johnson, who is now a retired superintendent from the state of South Carolina. He's also serving in some other roles in which we will get into very shortly. Innovative, progressive, and passionate. These three words capture the essence of an educational leader who believes in children. After serving for 13 consecutive years as superintendent of Greenwood School District 50 and an additional year as an interim superintendent in the Orangeburg County School District, Dr. Darrell Johnson is currently the executive director of the Salkehatchie Education Consortium. For nearly 35 years now, Dr. Johnson has pursued his passion to make a difference in the lives of children. He was born in Washington, D.C., and is raised by his grandmother, Reverend Everline Johnson, in the projects of the small town of Clover, South Carolina. Dr. Johnson is a renowned motivational and educational speaker. While obtaining his teaching credentials in the mid-1980s, he worked as a school custodian, a substitute teacher, an HVAC assistant, a nursing attendant, and newspaper reporter. As you can see, Dr. Johnson's done a little bit of all of it. After teaching English at the secondary level, Dr. Johnson served as an elementary and high school assistant principal, elementary principal, and assistant superintendent. He earned 3 degrees from Winthrop University, his bachelor's, his master's, and an education specialist degree. And also in 2004, he earned his doctorate in education from South Carolina State University. During this time, he also found time to officiate NCAA Division I college basketball games. He officiated in the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference for 27 years, the CIAA, Central Intercollegiate Athletic Association, for 12 years, as well as the Atlantic Coast Conference, the Southern Conference, the Big South, and Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Association. Dr. Johnson officiated 12 MEAC tourney championships and 3 first-round games in the NCAA Division I March Madness tournament. What stands out most about Dr. Johnson is his faith in God, his energy, hard work, and dedication to children, families, and the wider community he serves. As superintendent, he developed the Greenwood Promise, which is a $5 million venture providing scholarship money to assist students with tuition support. He also initiated a bow tie program for at-risk students and has given more than $50,000 in scholarships to program graduates. Dr. Johnson is also an author of a book entitled "It Ain't in the Book," a work that reveals how positive influence and rearing from a maternal grandmother who was a minister coupled with his faith catapults him past obstacles into being a passionate leader. Dr. Johnson shares authentic life experiences via a mix of inspiring, encouraging, and real-world events. He has delivered keynote addresses in North and South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Virginia, and Illinois. He also shared educational ideas with the New York City public school system, as well as Lane, North Ireland. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Premier Education Consultants and the chairman of the Javon and Mary Johnson Foundation, which provides scholarships for first-year college students. When it comes to learning life's lessons for leadership, Dr. Johnson aspires to the idea that the person who tries makes many mistakes, but he never makes the biggest mistake of all, which is doing nothing. Everyone must do something and keep their faith in God. Certainly words to live by. Now, at this time, I'd like to welcome to the Wright Experience my fraternity brother, good friend, and mentor, Dr. Darrell Johnson. Good to see you, my brother.
Glad to be here tonight, Dr. Wright. So glad to be on the program. It's an honor.
And certainly glad to have you. Dr. Johnson, I want to give you the opportunity and space. You served excellently as superintendent in Greenwood School District 50 for many years. And I remember that work. I kind of watched that work from afar but close, being next door. So talk to us about some of your proudest moments during that time, maybe at Greenwood 50 as well as in the interim role in Orangeburg.
First, I thank God for the opportunity to participate on the program tonight. And I think one of the key attributes of anything I've been able to do has been my faith. My faith has allowed me to do a lot of things I never planned on doing, because a lot of the works that I went through truly were not in the book. Yeah. And when I think of my time in Greenwood School District 50, perhaps one of the greatest accomplishments occurred in when a first-year superintendent from a small town of Clover became the first African-American superintendent in Greenwood. And I was able to make it there for 13 years because I was able to connect with the community, parents, students, and board members at large. Because I realized at the very onset, it was not about Darrell Johnson at all. It was about those children. And my one goal was to go there and make sure we focused on doing what's right for children. Not what was best for adults, but what was right for those children. And we had a number of accomplishments there that I'm very proud of. And I think there are four that really stand out. And the first one was we completed, during my first year, a $150 million building project. Wow. And this is back in 2006. Mm-hmm. 150 million right straight out of the gate. And I had no plan on spending the money to build schools. It was totally something I was not prepared for to do immediately. But we were able to get it done despite a lot of controversy. And what stands out about it to me the most is I received my first lawsuit. My 9th day on the job in Greenwood. I knew nothing about the area, very little about what was going on, other than the fact that we had more than 70 mobile units that children were being educated from. And I knew there was a need to put students in facilities that were first rate, first class, that would give them the best opportunity to learn. And we had an individual who was running for the board who was opposed to it. And I'll never forget when he delivered that lawsuit to me. It totally floored me. But it rocked me so much, I went back to what my whole purpose for being there was. I was there to do a job, and my job was to do what was best for children. And they needed the first-class facilities to carry it out. Long story short, we made it through that lawsuit. That individual ran for the board, won, and issued me my second lawsuit 2 months later. But by my faith in God, still made it 13 years. And that individual became a very nice person that I was able to work with, because we understood that it was not about me or him. It was about the children. Right. The second thing I'm really proud of in Greenwood was we set up and established a complete magnet program for the arts, technology, all the way through. There was no magnet program. And we were able to get that established. And that was pretty profound, because now we gave children opportunities to compete in different specialized programs, not just in Greenwood, but those that are occurring across the state, across the nation, and across the world. Third project I was proud of was we made sure we purchased some laptop computers for all children to take home K through 12 every day over the weekend and summer, because technology was impending And the problem was our children were being asked to complete tasks and projects at home using technology that they didn't have. And they could not afford to purchase their own computers. So when teachers give assignments, some students would have the wherewithal to get it done because they had computers, others would not. So we took care of that one. That was a big bite of the apple. And then probably one I'm still proudest a lot about is the Greenwood Promise.
Sure. Right.
Because we tell children all the time, if you go to school, do your work, have good grades, pay attention, you will go to college. That's not always correct if they can't afford it.
Right.
And the Greenwood Promise gave us an opportunity to let every child know that if you do graduate, apply to school. We could at least pay for them going to the local technical school for the first 2 years. And then hopefully they would transition over to the 4-year school, which was college, which was in Greenwood also. So that was a very, very phenomenal project. But one of the keys to it all is none of this was accomplished by Darrell Johnson. I had a very strong and a solid team.
Mm-hmm.
And we believe that if we work together for the good of the children, that we could accomplish a lot of things. And I just felt like we were able to carry out these 4 initiatives because we had our focus on what we needed to do. We knew it was for the children. And despite any obstacle, we had to do what was right for children. Now, it cost a lot of capital, and I had a head full of hair and everything when I started, but lo and behold, we made it through that. And then I left Greenwood, and I was working for a private company, doing a little bit of consulting up in New York City, having a great time. And I got a phone call about maybe an opportunity to work with the Orangeburg County school districts, which were consolidating 3 different districts into one. And Dr. Wright, that truly was an experience in working with getting those 3 districts together.
Right.
But fortunately, I was able to work with that board and get that situated, and they're doing quite nicely now. And I regress back to one of the other parts about Greenwood was I had an outstanding board of trustees to work with.
Right.
And my board chairpersons, the other board members, they gave a young superintendent an opportunity. They stood behind me. They supported me. They encouraged me. And when I was not on the same page as them, we listened to each other. We agreed to disagree, but we agreed on most occasions. And I learned so much from them because they were a very astute board, very experienced, and just the fact they gave me an opportunity to come in and do some things that were pretty much out of the box, out of the norm, was a phenomenal opportunity to me. And I just appreciate those board members who did give me the opportunity to show that all I needed was an opportunity, because my grandmother and the members of Mars Tabernacle Church had prepared me for this role. So I think I was ready.
Had some church rearing to get you ready.
Yes, sir.
Well, you mentioned the key. Good leaders, particularly those that rise to the superintendent level, have to learn how to work collaboratively with boards of education. That's probably one of the skills that we don't necessarily learn in the schoolhouse when we're preparing to be superintendents, but it's so critical to having a successful tenure. So you certainly have a lot to be proud of, Dr. Johnson. Those 13 years, you did some amazing work. And although I was next door dealing with that little bitty district, I was proud to see some of the accomplishments that you made and that are still present in Greenwood 50.
Yes, sir.
That came to being under your leadership. So hats off to you. Dr. Johnson, let's talk about this book. I remember vividly, you may not anymore, but I do, sitting in a WEPEC meeting, and you told us all that you were going to write a book when you retired. I remember that, and you even told us what the name of the book was going to be. And we all were, cracking and laughing and so forth and so on, because I don't know if I thought you were serious, but you pulled it off and have done a very good job, and I've read it. But talk to us about your book and what inspired you to write it and what you hope to accomplish with it, and just talk to us about it.
What inspired me to write it was it's kind of bittersweet, but I had promised my grandmother that I was going to try to do something, and I had told my superintendent friend, I had told my mom that out of all this experience, I was going to try to put something in writing so that people who came after me or family members could kind of experience some of the things I had went through.
Right.
Because I took a look back at how God had brought me through so many different jobs, so many different opportunities, so many obstacles that prepared me for that moment to be a superintendent.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept putting off the work until my mother became pretty sick with cancer, which she succumbed to later on. But during her final days, my sister went to stay with her. And she's a nurse, Sherry, stayed with her. And I would go down some on weekends and I would talk to my sister, and I would talk to text the chapters in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I vividly recall describing the chapters of the book to my sister, and she just lay across the bed and listened as I was pretty much talking to her about different experiences that I had encountered. And as it got closer to the end of the book, as we were downstairs typing, my mother was transitioning. They had called in hospice. So I never forget the final chapter, tears in my eyes. I was trying to just get the book completed before she transitioned. And that was my goal. I have to get this done for her. Mm-hmm. So I got it completed before she transitioned. We didn't have it printed until later, but I felt like I had told some people I wanted to write this book. And I had my title because, Dr. Wright, as I think about what you do, what other superintendents do, what principals do, what parents do, what teachers do, what students do, what the community does, it ain't in the book.
Right. That's right.
It ain't in the book. There is so much we have to deal with as school leaders that no one taught us.
Right.
Not a single professor taught me anything about how to go and talk to a parent after they've lost their child to an accident after a football game. No one prepared me for how to go and talk to an unruly group of parents who are upset at the system for something that the system had not caused to be a problem.
Right.
I told somebody, it ain't in the book how you have to go in sometime and talk to your teachers and explain to them that our budget has just been cut $5 million by the state when the economy recession hit and it tanked. It ain't in the book.
Right.
No one prepared us for a lot of this stuff. Mm-hmm. And two of my best buddies, Superintendent Dr. Russell Booker and Mr. Benny Bennett, God bless his soul, the three of us used to always talk.
Right.
And I never forget how Benny used to always encourage us and tell us, go and get the job done. Yeah. And he'd always point them fingers because we've got to do some things that people don't really understand. Yeah. And there is no book to tell you how to do some of these things. Yeah. And I'm a former English teacher. And people always tell me, but Dr. Johnson, ain't is not a word. I said, yes, it is. Because when I was growing up, people used to ask me to look up things in some books at home. And I told them I can't. And they said, why? I said, because I ain't got no dictionary at home to look it up. So, and I just believe that a lot of things we do, and what we did when I was a superintendent, and what you're doing right now, and the pandemic is a perfect example.
Right.
We're dealing some things right now that ain't in the book as to how we're going to handle them.
No playbook for that at all.
No, sir. I'm getting a little bit excited here, but the right experiences, it ain't in the book what you're going to have to do to get some of the stuff done that I'm aware of. It just ain't in the book.
That's right. Yeah, you mentioned our friend Benny. I remember that finger. You reminded me of that. Yeah, just a good brother. We certainly miss him.
Yes, sir.
Good superintendent colleague for sure. So, Dr. Johnson, you've done some extensive work now, motivational speaking. You've done some executive leadership coaching, from what I'm understanding. So, talk to us about the life post superintendent. Your experiences and what makes you continue to want to be a part of this work post superintendency.
What makes me want to continue to be a part of the work is the work is never ending.
There you go. Right.
It's never ending. And I reached out to my mentor, Dr. Randy Bridges, who's from North Carolina. Of course, he came up, he was the superintendent in South Carolina. And we talked a little bit about what goes on in this work. Well, education is a never ending process.
Right.
And I had decided when I retired, I was going to sit down, I was going to relax and do a little bit of lawn care with my pitching wedge, my forehand. That's a little golf.
Right.
But there's something that kept biting at me. I had several people call me and ask me if I would be their executive coach, school administrators in different states that I'm actually coaching with them. And once you get this in your blood,
right.
Once an educator, always an educator. And I found out that there's so many superintendents who came after me, who are coming after you, who are going into this role, who need some assistance. And what I wanted to try to do was to make sure that superintendents, when they go into these roles now, know that they are not alone.
That's right.
They have others they can reach out to, who can share experiences. And I wholeheartedly believe that by staying in education and being able to give back and give candid, direct examples of what happened without watering it down, telling it like it is, I've been able to help a number of administrators.
Right.
And Dr. Wright, what really surprised me was I thought back to my years when I used to go to the South Carolina Association of School Administrators. And I still can remember when I was one of the youngest administrators at the conference. But when I went back a couple of years ago, I believe I was almost one of the oldest or most senior administrators there. And it did my heart a lot of joy to see a lot of the young men who I had sat down with at some of these conferences, and we just had some open, frank discussions about what happens in administration. Mm-hmm. We were able to take the gloves off and talk about what happens when that parent comes in with a situation. How do you handle that unruly board member? Right. How do you deal with the media when the media is saying everything that they want to say to sell the newspaper and not giving you your fair shot at an accurate story? How do you handle it when you've got teachers who are going through things that a young administrator you haven't experienced? How do you help them? How do you help your fellow superintendents stay as superintendents? Because when you think about it, the average tenure of a superintendent, 3 to maybe 5 years, then that's it. That's right. Well, how do you stay? How do you stay in the game? And I thought about it, you know what? I said my faith that kept me going. And I always tried to bring Aretha Franklin to the table.
Okay.
So I try to tell young administrators, you've got to respect yourself.
All right.
But most importantly, you've got to respect our profession.
Yes.
And I could not walk away from education knowing that I still had something to give, that I still could be a vibrant part of this movement. I wanted to get out of the way so that the younger educators like yourself could come on in and make these decisions and make some things happen. But I realized that if I just walked away with the knowledge that I had acquired, I would not be doing what I wanted others to do for me. So I figured if I could stay in, help others do the best that they could, and give back. And I always try to tell them what I'll do is what my mentor told me I will share with you. Here are my thoughts.
Right.
Here is how I perceive the situation. Now it's up to you to make the decision. I won't make a decision for you, but I do my best to share with you. And when I'm talking to these educators, and I got back into it, and I always tell them, please don't ask me if you don't want the truth. If you want to feel good, call Dr. William Wright. You want somebody to give it to you straight, give me a call. But no, I know you do it, Dr. Wright. But when I see so many administrators who look like me,
right,
who think like me, who haven't had the opportunities just like I didn't have, but I've also got other administrators who don't look like me.
right.
And I've got female administrators, other administrators from different parts of the country who just need somebody they can talk to. And I was just amazed at how many superintendents have benefited from just being able to call me late at night, sometime early in the morning. Hey, Doc, here's a situation I'm dealing with. Have you dealt with X, Y, or Z?
Mm-hmm.
And then the conversation exudes. And Dr. Wright, what's been so uplifting and surprising to me is the number of people who are willing to listen to what someone else has been through. And then by giving them an opportunity to hear how I handled, discuss ways that they could possibly handle it, and then move forward. But I always try to get them back to three things. Take care of your faith. Mm-hmm. Take care of your family. Mm-hmm. Then the job.
Right.
And I think it's so important that future administrators know those three attributes.
In that order, too. Yeah.
So critical.
Yeah. Amazing advice, amazing insight, and so desperately needed. We as leaders, now I don't know, you said I'm much younger than you. I don't know about all that, but anyway, but anyway, we all still need that, those people that we can call to and confide in and so forth to get. Sometimes you need folks just to listen to you talk through a situation to make sure that you're headed in the right direction. Yes, these superintendents nowadays, Dr. Johnson, you know this. You were, an amazing superintendent for your years, and then you served as an interim. The more we stay in this business, the more complex the jobs become.
It is. It is.
So sometimes just to have someone that we can reach out to, I think is certainly an amazing thing for you to do. And it also gives me some insight into maybe what I can do to help others when I hang it up. So
yes, sir. Because Dr. Wright, I think what you guys are doing and what I'm starting to see is it has changed. The superintendency has changed, right, but it's still the same. It's still the same, and it's a tough job.
Sure.
Because a lot of places you go, you have 3 to 5 to 10 ministers in all the districts. You get 3 to 5 bank presidents. Right. You got a number of other leaders, but one school district superintendent in your district.
Superintendent, that's right.
It's a lonely, lonely place that now calls for courageous leadership. I think some of the attributes of being a good superintendent, you have to be a visionary. You got to be a visionary and to be able to handle that day-to-day operation for the school. You get to be multi-skilled to deal with the parents, the principals, the teachers, the community at large, and you got to be able to communicate both oral and written. You know that for sure. You've got to be empathetic.
That's right. That's right.
But now is the time in which courage is going to have to take the forefront because so many people are wanting to tell superintendents how to do the job. And since I have a filter, I think I would ask some of them, now, when the job was posted, you didn't apply for the job. But I always found it interesting that people who didn't apply were very good at telling me how to do what I have been hired to do.
You said a mouthful there, brother. that's the power of being retired, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But that's truer words have not been spoken. That's everybody has an idea about how to do it, and it's interesting. You have to do this work in order to understand it.
Yes, sir.
And everybody understands that when it comes to being a physician.
Yeah.
Everybody understands that when it comes to being maybe even a minister. But
yes, sir.
In our profession, sometimes I think right along the lines of what you're saying, that people feel like, well, that's an easy job. I ought to be able to do that with my eyes closed.
Anyway. And Dr. Wright,
yes, sir.
I didn't want to go ahead without telling people my best friend.
Yes, sir.
In the school district was the policy.
There you go.
The policy is our Bible.
That's right.
And sometimes your best friend, they may move to another state. They may go to another country. They may retire. But the policy will remain, and it doesn't change unless it's voted on in public 2 times. Once if they vote to suspend it.
That's right.
And as long as superintendents like yourself and other administrators stay within the policy, they're going to be okay.
Difficult to argue with policy, isn't it?
It is, but it's going to take courage for you to step forward and say, hey, I'm following the policy and I'm doing what's right for children. And I used to always ask myself, if this was my son or my daughter, what would I want the superintendent to do about this? Mm-hmm. And I always ask myself a question, was I fair? It wasn't about whether you like me or not as superintendent. My job was to try to be fair.
Right.
Did I make mistakes? Yes, I did.
Sure.
Was I trying to be fair? Every time.
That's right.
And it's either armchair quarterback or go back the next day, make a decision and tell me how you would do this after the fact. When the heat is on and the decision has to be made, we're talking about children's lives, it takes a courageous leader to do that.
That's right.
And we got to make some small decisions. Okay. But the big decisions, snow day. Do you want to shut that school down? If snow is going on, if there's a weapon involved, there's a threat of a weapon, what do you do? How do you do it? Dr. Wright, it ain't in the book.
It's not in the book. What a plug. That's great. Dr. Johnson, anything else that you'd like to leave with our audience at this time that I did not cover?
Yeah, I would just like to leave the audience that now, when so many people are craving the 3 Ps that are causing problems in education, that's the prestige, the popularity, and power. Mm-hmm. Everyone wants it. They all want to run the school districts. But now, more than ever, is the time for people to step up and support superintendents who are doing the job for children.
Absolutely.
Because I have learned that children may not know who you are, but eventually they will see what you do. And people going throughout this world, a lot of people understand the what of education, but they've forgotten about the why.
That's right.
Our role is very direct. Take care of the day-to-day operations, provide an optimum learning environment, make sure the students are taught that curriculum, make sure they understand that all of these things we're doing, we're preparing children for 4-year college, 2-year college, military, and workforce. That's right. And this is a hard job. And since football season is going on, I use the analogy, the role of the superintendent is not to be the quarterback. The superintendent's job is to be the left tackle and block for the building principal so the principal can do his job. The principal needs to be the right guard and block for the teacher to do her job. Mm-hmm. The teacher's job be the quarterback and teach those children. Because we don't teach math, science, English, and social studies. You teach children, and you teach them every day. It's about teaching and learning. Now, I tell the teachers, doesn't matter whether or not you're teaching, the students are going to be learning. We want to make sure they learn what we want them to learn.
That's right.
And we don't have the students we used to have We don't have the students we want to have. We have the students that we have, and it's our job to teach them every day. So I challenge every teacher, every superintendent out there to implement the Johnson two-step method. When you go to work, take a look at that child, take a look at that situation, take 2 steps back and imagine, that's my son. That's my daughter. What would I do? Mm-hmm. It ain't in the book. It's in your heart. You got to do it that way, the right way.
I love it, brother. I love it. I appreciate that. Dr. Johnson, hold on for me for just a minute. We'll come back and close out the show.
Yes, sir.
My guest next week on the Wright Experience is going to be Dr. Rob Jackson. Dr. Jackson is the current superintendent of Carteret County Schools in North Carolina, and he was just named the superintendent-elect of Buncombe County Schools in North Carolina. Dr. Jackson will be our guest next week. That'll be October 6th, 2022, 7:00 p.m. on the Wright Experience. Those of you that are viewing our podcast, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing so. We are excited about the growth that this podcast is undertaking. We're excited about the work that we're doing that we started in February of 2021. And as you can see tonight, I wanted to get Dr. Johnson up here for a while. He is absolutely an amazing resource. He's a renowned author doing very well with that work. And just a valuable resource for those of us that are in this profession to learn from and grow from. So if you're looking for the kind of services that he's providing, by all means, don't hesitate to reach out to him. And I'm sure that you will benefit from his expertise and leadership. Dr. Johnson, my brother, I want to thank you so very much for coming up here and being a part of this. I knew that you were going to be the 100 Darrell Johnson I've always known, and I appreciate that. And to the Wright Experience audience, I want to thank you for viewing us, and good evening.